But you know that I've been involved in cases where we've represented elite level attorneys in the biggest law firms in the world, right? And you know, heaven forbid you send them a draft letter to opposing counsel that's got a comma out of place, or you know, your participles screwed up. You know, woof. You know,
I'm gonna take you to task for that.
Yeah, and you know, and it does. Like I said, sweeping generality, engineers, doctors, and lawyers. But there's other professions that are similar. And actually, now that I think about it, the real number two is a sole business owner. Sole business owners are the way that they like look at their finances. Sometimes you're just like, oh man, you gotta be kidding. Well, my tax return said I only made $5,000 last year. You're driving a Ferrari. There's a reason why your tax returns say one thing, and you know your life.
That's between you and the IRS, sir.
Yeah, well, but the difficulty of in a family law situation is if an individual is willing to risk it with the IRS, they're certainly willing to risk it. You know, not telling Amos Whitney the truth. So you can go down a black hole very quickly in that situation.
I certainly can see that. So basically, if you're married to an attorney, don't get divorced. If you're married to an engineer, don't get divorced. I like it.
Yeah, that's probably decent baseline advice. I think you know, a lot of divorce attorneys have been divorced. I would like to think that the colleagues that I work with and think highly of and would be, you know, referring people to would look at it the same way I look at it, and it's like, those long, drawn-out divorces are often just a losing situation for both sides. And you know, you're looking at the divorce attorney saying that, and so.
And I could see not wanting to, you know, just personally, like I was always of the mindset that if I was breaking up with somebody, like that was it. I was done. I didn't want to have anything to do with it anymore. And, you know, sort of thank you next, as Ariana Grande would say. And, you know, I probably would wind up leaving a lot of money on the table just because I didn't want to engage with it. You know, just like, let's get this over with and move on with our lives. But that's a personal problem.
I have heard the same joke from a lot of divorce attorneys that say that their divorce would be about which one of them has to take the kids more rather than vice versa. So there's like once you do it for a living, there's like a little bit different philosophy on it, I think.
There's probably some gallows humor as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I know how that goes. Now, one other thing that I thought was interesting that maybe you can offer some insight into is, so Dre's wife is an attorney, and it looks like, I tried to look her up, and it looks like she's a partner in a firm in California, like a small firm. So how do you go about valuing stuff like businesses or whatever financial stuff? And this is probably an overly complicated question. Stuff like businesses or like Dre's assets or things like that. And also, has coronavirus really caused people to take a hit in terms of how you're going to value things?
Those are great questions. If there is a business involved in a divorce, it is an asset to be divided. The equity, the interest in the divorce, the fruit of the marital labor is potentially dividable. Now, the tricky part is like, how do you come up with a number for that? And there are professionals that we will engage with, business valuators, that will, you know, go through the books, go through the tax returns, the bank accounts, the balance sheets, the profit and loss statements, the financial statements, analyze the health of the business, interview the business owners and the people that are important in the business, and come up with a number. And then the other side comes up with a number and you argue about the differences. But using Dr. Dre's wife's law firm as an example, a small ownership interest in a law firm might not have a lot of marital value because it's really goodwill, right? The interest is in the people that do it, and they would not be able to sell their business to someone else. So for example, like consulting businesses don't have a lot of marital equity in them generally, because if Amos Whitney is a consultant. I can't sell my consulting business to another consultant because the relationships are mine. No one's going to buy my book of, there's just no reason to do that. There's no value to it because the people that work with me as a consultant aren't necessarily just going to go with the next person that buys my book, right? On the other hand, something like Dr. Dre's headphones business. Let's say he owns 50% of Beats by Dre. And you can get, that company's probably fairly easy to value. It's worth 400 million. Maybe his wife is saying 200 mil. Who knows? Or she says half of 200 million. But businesses like that, where people would purchase it and it has value to others, they go right into the ledger. And oftentimes, because it's equity, it's going to be, if it's a valuable business, it might take 10 years to pay off the non-ownership spouse. If it's if you have $1 million interest in that company, it might take you 10 years to get paid out, depending on the liquidity of the divorce overall.
I bet people get real salty about that.
Oh yeah, that is. But then if that's going to be a very kind of sophisticated approach. You're not winging that. You're going to be engaging with the business valuation, financial advisors. Probably, you're probably talking about a very sophisticated accountant is involved. So in some senses, those cases are a relief to me. I like math. I like to do numbers, but if my clients have a team of people that we can engage and do it professionally and super correctly, then I can kind of have them explain it to me, look at it critically, maybe point out that I see some errors or I see some way to change things, but at least it's not me on the back of my yellow pad, carrying the one and all that. COVID, I think, has made cases more difficult to value. Every business owner, not every, but most business owners in this time period are wondering about the long-term security of their business, of the way they make a living. If you were a restaurant owner in December 2019, and your business was doing well, how do you think what do you think the books reflected for a restaurant owner now in July of 2020? They're most likely having the worst year they've ever had. So many of them have to close, and other businesses are like that too. It doesn't mean they don't have a value, but the tricky part, and I haven't had this conclusively kind of done yet, is to say, is this COVID reaction permanent to the numbers of the business, to the health of the business? Is this a blip on the radar? Is this going to be a one-year deal, or is this going to be something that impacts the business's finances for a long time? Car dealerships, for example, I might have a case that involves this, but they're not selling a whole lot of cars in 2020, not at the volume, at the rate that they were doing before. Now, there's certain dealerships might be doing fine, but I'm speaking generally, things like car purchases are generally down, and so. Is a car dealership, if you had a valuation December 31st, 2019 of your spouse's car dealership, 6 months later, your spouse is probably raging about that value because they don't agree with it. Now, the business valuators aren't going to stop doing, working. They're going to keep, they're going to be busy. But I haven't seen a good kind of head-to-head competition between two business valuators that would argue kind of the different sides of it. And it's a little above my pay grade as to kind of what all the factors would be, but it certainly made things more difficult to resolve because one of the keys to resolving a divorce, especially in that type of situation, is kind of addressing as many uncertainties the best way you can. And this just opened up Pandora's box of questions and uncertainties and questions that attorneys can't answer for their clients.
It feels like there's nothing but uncertainty in 2020.
Right. And so if my client is asking me, what should I get, or what's fair, or will I be okay? It becomes a harder question to answer. Now, you could look at other components of the financial portfolio or the job prospects of the clients, this, that, and the other thing. But in general, it's just another question that's in your client's mind. And when your client has a lot of questions in their mind, it's very difficult to resolve a case.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, one last question. My battery is
last one.
actually running. My battery is running a little low, so I hopefully won't lose you here. So I saw that Ms. Young, Nicole, I don't know what to call her, asked for spousal support. So what is the difference between spousal support and just a straight division of I'm taking 50% of your formidable assets?
All right, I'm going to answer that question from Maryland law perspective, not exactly what Dr. Dre and his wife are going to go through, because I don't know. But in Maryland, there's two forms of alimony, which is spousal support: rehabilitative alimony or indefinite alimony. Rehabilitative alimony is a set amount of money for a set amount of time designed to get the receiving spouse kind of a launching pad into being self-supporting. And that's a far more typical one. Indefinite alimony is the concept where, I see you now.
You see me? I'm sorry, I lost you.
There you go, it's all right. I'm talking about the differences in alimony. So
I really want to know the answer to this.
I'm gonna repeat, two forms of alimony in Maryland. One is rehabilitative alimony, and that's the concept of monthly spousal support for a certain amount of time and a certain amount of money to help the receiving spouse get on their feet and become self-supporting. Indefinite alimony is the concept that the receiving spouse is really never going to get back onto their feet in the way that the other spouse would be, and if they're not awarded indefinite alimony, it would result in an unconscionably disparate set of financial circumstances. Now, there's really kind of, in my opinion, off the top of my head, there's really kind of two ways to end up in an indefinite alimony situation. And one is if your receiving spouse is disabled in a way that like they're really never going to have a job that can support them. So that's one way to end up in an indefinite alimony situation. The lifestyles will be unconscionably disparate because maybe someone has, I don't even want to think about it, but some sort of very debilitating situation where they can't work. It's okay, I have the same thing going on. The other one is kind of the super rich situation where as much money as Dr. Dre's wife, Nicole Young, attorney at law, makes, she's not making Dr. Dre money. And she's been married to Dr. Dre for 25 years. And they have been living the elite lifestyle, right? They probably have multiple homes. They probably have luxury cars. They probably have more money in the bank than we can even wrap our heads around. I assume that the legal lifestyle of Ms. Young is not the same. Otherwise, I need to change what practice of law I'm in. And so she might be making the argument that although I'm well off, although I am self-supporting and I'm independent and I don't need any money to get by, I am used to a lifestyle that I can never get back to. And Dr. Dre only has been able to get to this lifestyle because of the support of me, his wife, raising his children, doing X, Y, and Z so that he can spend these hours devoted to Beats by Dre, devoted to his music, etc. And because of that, I am entitled to a lifetime of alimony that will, monthly payments that will allow me to continue in that type of lifestyle. So that's probably, if she were in Maryland, that's the direction that she would be going in. And that's a pretty, that's a tough position to be in. So I think
that's a good answer.
Excellent.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch. The counter argument to that would be, kind of in a short sentence or two, would be Dr. Dre's attorney saying, you just got $400 million. There's no way that you can't make that afford you the lifestyle that you want.
Fair.
Beat straight with their request for alimony. So that's kind of the short response. Like, I've seen people start talk about rate of return on large sums of investment, and it's basically like a second salary for people. So there's ways to kind of get around that claim by the wife. And the other part of it is, you know, ma'am, you're not married to a doctor, or you're not married to a plumber or a police officer. You're married to kind of a one of one. You married Dr. Dre. There's not a lot of them around. It's not so much your marital efforts that allowed him to do that. It's his creative genius. And, you know, there's something to be said for that. It's, you know.
Sure, and given the fact that he was already very well established, maybe there's something to that. So to bring it back to the East Coast, though, was Biggie right that mo money means mo problems?
In the divorce world, Biggie Smalls is 100% correct. Mo money, mo problems. So I think that is a tremendous way to end it. Although I did like earlier on, you said you want to talk about Dre. I thought that we should have incorporated that. We missed that opportunity. I'm gonna let you go. Thank you for spending some time with me. Thank you for talking about this. And for anyone that made it all the way through our video, please be sure to like it, smash that like button, share the video, comment on it, and hopefully we do this again. Melissa, thank you so much.
Thank you, Amos.